wanted to give you a couple of pieces of information. You know that I always use this opportunity to give you kind of an update in terms of how we are doing, usually figures, numbers, but this is the reflection of your work and how your actions, your engagement, your commitment continues to be of the highest quality. So again, all those numbers are valid for us. I want to apologize for the size of this font, but this is, I guess, the best we could do for the amount of information we have here. For this past fall, and the numbers continue to update for the spring, we have been having over 470 faculty members in our roster, if you will, delivering 37 fully online programs, and you see the distribution of 13 degrees and 24 certificates. And on the right side, you see that entire list of subject areas that your expertise is being leveraged and used. The figures for that we are entertaining and managing is 22,601 enrollments, and of those, 4,700 students are taking only online courses at Tarrant. The weekend college is also an important operation, and again, thanks to all of you for helping our students in those cohorts to continue to progress. Is about 1,000 students, 917 students, and 671 only come to us through the weekend college. On the next slide, you will see kind of in a visual way, you know, through the pie chart here, the distribution of those enrollments, being the 16-week terms, the largest chunk of our enrollments, and then of course the 8 weeks and the weekend college, and you continue seeing all those distributions there. On the next slide, you will see more of a traditional, you know, table type of approach in terms of enrollments, and this is for fall, which are numbers that are of course final, and you see the distribution between e-learning and weekend college. We continue to be leading on that aspect, approximately, you know, a 10% annualized growth in e-learning. Weekend college has been pretty stable. You see a little dip this fall, but it's simply because the pandemic hit us hard, knowing that weekend college is hybrid, so there is an engagement there that is dependent on face-to-face. On the next slide, this is for spring, and you see here that the figures are as of today. I want to thank Sherry Mitchell for keeping us appraised and up to date in regards to statistics and the figures that we are responsible for. We have 10,820 students, and that translates to 20,662 enrollments. And you see the distribution again on the right side for spring. If you give me the next slide, this will be kind of a historical, and again, you see the different semesters here, the fall in purple, the summer in blue, and the spring terms in green, and you see pretty much how is that distributed and how we have been doing for all this time. We continue to be, thanks to you, the largest portion of the enrollments in the summer. We are about 40% of those. On the next slide, really quick, I want to show the those enrollments and how they are seen again through all this time. And again, I want to apologize for the font size, but if you can see that yellow line, that is kind of a not a roller coaster, because in Six Flags, you know, you have tighter turns, but you see the ups and downs, and the main element here is that is the success rate. Okay, and I want again to highlight the work you do to ensure that we are above 70%, number one, and number two, that you are instrumental in helping us achieve that annual goal of increasing the success rate of our students and the campus by 2%. So when you hear that, this is that effort translated into activities. And again, you see that variation simply because we have larger and smaller enrollments, and those percentage fluctuate a little bit in that graph. If you give me the next slide, this is again on of course larger font. You see those enrollments at the left, and more specifically for those of you looking for the specificity on figure, how is that success rate being translated based on those activities, and as well the attrition rate or the withdrawal rate at the far right, and that is for e-learning. On the next slide, you see here weekend college. In the weekend college, again, the enrollments and success rates, and this is from fall 18 up to fall 20, which are complete figures we have. We have been managing, a pretty good success rate, with our highest being at 72%. And again, the fall semester, knowing the pandemic took a toll on that, we experienced a dip, but still a very low attrition rate there. On the next one, you see here a winter semester. I want to also commend and thank all the faculty members that play a role in the winter semester. You have seen here that those enrollments have been growing steadily. Right now, we are pretty much 4 times larger than when we started in the winter of 17. I know that it takes special, not only a commitment, but special skills and competencies and attitudes to manage and teach during the winter semester, because it's not only the holidays, but it's accelerated, and the type of student that comes to that term is also one that expects that that high quality of teaching. So again, you see that our highest has been at 88.9%, and for 20 we had an 84. We are still waiting for those figures for the one that just ended a couple days ago. On the next slide, you see here another important component, which is the monthly starts. As you know, those are kind of the perennial summer term, if I can say it that way. Those are 4-week terms, and we are doing pretty good, again, thanks to your commitment and service, experiencing over 70% success rate. They are very low attrition rate at 11% for fall 20. The next one, the weekend college enrollments and success rates. This is another view of a previous slide that I show you, but still wanted to present you with this information. So again, is data for you that reflects your efforts and service to the college and students. If you give me the next one. I wanted to, of course, in the faculty conference, highlight the expertise of our faculty members. Again, you are stars in your respective subjects, and then when we pair that with distance education, and more specifically online learning and accelerated studies, our faculty have been becoming more and more experts, if you will, and increasing that expertise in various subjects. This is only a snapshot of some of the webinar activities that we held by a few of our faculty members during the fall of 2020. Various topics here we try to cover as much as possible in or with a diverse set of topics. In the next slide, I believe is a continuation of those activities, and again, a variety of topics here based on needs, based on areas of opportunities for us to continue to connect with faculty members and with our students. On the next slide, this is kind of a more on the presentation side of things, our faculty have been widely sought after, if you will, in regards to securing presentations at the local, state, and national conferences. You see some of those that are in the queue coming up this semester, but some of them are also from this past fall. And I want to once again commend each and all of you that have been participating in webinars, providing your feedback, your contributions, and presenting and sharing the expertise and how we are leading the way in regards to online education. Many of these activities, our fellow faculty members from the sister campuses at TCC have also contributed and participated, but most importantly, they have gained knowledge and strategies and techniques from these activities that have facilitated their transitions since March of 20 to remote teaching, and everything now mediated by technology. I think I have another slide here, still on presentations. I want to just highlight one activity that we put together from my office. Is the President Speaker Series for fall. We had 4 presenters, actually 5 presenters, 4 sessions, important topics. And again, you know, we try to infuse variety and relevance to those subjects for our audience. We receive over 500 participants in 4 big groups. The community attended many of these activities, faculty across the district, staff, and many of our students participated as well. I want to take this opportunity and thank the planning committee, if you will, the technical committee. Everybody knows who they are in terms of helping us not only put this set of activities on a quick turnaround, because we saw an opportunity, and we also saw a way for us to continue to educate our stakeholders. Everything was of good quality. We didn't experience any, at least on the broadcasting side of things, any technical issues, and we received very, very good and engaging questions from the participants. So again, thank you for your attendance, for your commitment and participation to and attending this President Speaker Series. We are in planning phase, going through the list of potential topics for the spring. So stay tuned as we align those, and certainly we would like to see you attending those that are of your interest for the spring. On the next slide, I wanted to kind of highlight an important element, which is, you know, health and wellness. And again, in online and with the pandemic and everything that has been happening, we tend to either forget or be comfortable in what we are doing, and sometimes we forget about certain things that we still need to do. So this particular flyer is something that I think we put together in the second half, kind of in November of last year, in terms of providing with tips to our staff and faculty members. I think that after this meeting, we can share this with you. So again, you keep that handy, and again, reminders of activities that will allow you to do better in remote work. I know that for many of you, this has been the only way in which you interact with the college and students, and maybe you have your own set of tips, but we saw an opportunity to provide additional guidance to our colleagues and our faculty. So with that said, I think on the next slide is pretty much everything that I had to cover this afternoon. Again, I want to thank you. Your resilience in 2020 was laudatory. I look forward to a new semester as a time of renewal, change, and growth. And you know, we have passed through a dark and challenging time, and brighter days are on the horizon. I wish all of you a healthy 2021 and a very productive, fulfilling, and engaging semester. So thank you again for the attendance and attention this afternoon. Dr. Sullivan.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Morales. I just want to reiterate what Dr. Morales has said, thanking you all because you have been instrumental in helping us get through these transitions. So the majority of our online faculty, there wasn't any issues, and a lot of you helped the faculty at other campuses to move their courses online, along with our instructional design team, our own Connect faculty, our staff. I would like to thank you because without you, that would have been extremely difficult to get done. And there were a lot of courses that needed that transition and that help. So we appreciate you. I just want to bring up some positive and good things that have been happening or happened last semester. National Distance Learning Week is celebrated in November, and we had 2 winners for our Connect faculty, Connect Campus Faculty Excellence Awards. And this is something that I started a couple of years ago because, you know, I had seen other campuses had award ceremonies for their faculty. So I presented it to Dr. Kerr and she approved. So we send the students the nomination forms, and they are the ones who nominate people for this award. And so this year, the full-time faculty member that was voted for by the students was Tim Park, who is our Connect Campus full-time faculty instructor. And our adjunct of the year is Deborah Blankenship, who teaches speech. Our student winners, I've listed their names there. We had a first, second, and third place, and they each received a scholarship amount according to the place they made in the contest. And I also made a video congratulating them and showcasing their work. That's the link right there. I can email it, or I'll put it in the comments later on so you can view it. But a faculty member pointed out to me that it was really nice for me to do that, not only because I hate being on camera, but because it was an opportunity for those students to share with their family their project and the announcement of them winning. So I was very excited about that, and I'll just tell you this now. The third place was my favorite. It was really funny. It's really short. So if you haven't seen those videos, please go check it out because our students are very talented and they have a great sense of humor, especially during the pandemic, during this time. Something else I'm excited about, I did the research and found out that we are offering our first learning community at TCC Connect this semester. So in the spring, Julia Quarles and Natalie Russell will be teaching learning community courses and linking them together. So it's Biology 1409 and English 2311. So I'm really interested to see how that goes, what the outcomes are, and how the students feel about it. It has successfully filled, so it's ready to go. Something else that's very exciting, we have 2 professors at Connect who have a podcast, the Professors. If you haven't heard me mention it before, I'm sure I've mentioned it several times. But something really cool besides their podcast, they were contacted to interview the editors of the book Stories from the Suffragette City. So they interviewed and posted it in November. So if you haven't heard it yet, please go to these podcasts that are listed. I don't even know what some of them are, but I listen to them on Spotify. So, you know, there are free, you can access it for free. So please do that. I was very excited to hear this as they continue their good work and their excellent conversations in this podcast. Something else that's wonderful that faculty across the district, including our faculty, have put together is the History of American Protest series. These are webinars that have been done, and I think they're going to continue this coming semester. And some of these full-time faculty listed here teach for us online. So this is a district-wide event, and they've had a lot of great student participation, and they've gotten great feedback, and how appropriate is it to talk about protests in history, because, you know, history always comes back to us, so we need to keep that in mind. But they have very good conversations and discussions, and students are receptive to these conversations and hearing these webinars. Something else, Misty Wilson Mertens informed me of the district was awarded the civic, or the CIVIES, the 2020 CIVIES, which is American Civic Collaboration Awards. So across the district, people have been putting together civic engagement projects and collaborating. So there's been voter registration drives across all 6 campuses. People bringing speakers to talk about civic engagement in their classrooms, and the creation of the civic engagement course shell. So that required collaboration across the district, and I'm very excited that they have been nominated for this award. I can't remember when they're presenting the awards, but as soon as I get information, I will update everyone. And last but not least, the faculty guide that we've been, you know, telling you about every semester. And if it needs updating, we try to update every semester. But Dr. Cervantes worked on getting assessment together and putting it in the Faculty Learn Center. So, you know, we encourage you all to read it every semester, and now you can get professional development credit to read it. So please, you know, if you've already read it, you should know it. You should be able to pass very easily. But please go into the Learn Center, and you can see the screenshot to the right. It lists what it's called, the TCC Connect Faculty Guide Assessment. So read it before you click on the assessment, and I'm pretty sure you all will fly with, you know, I forget the saying. Sorry. So with that being said, again, I would like to thank you all for your assistance with moving other faculty to their face-to-face to online. Our instructional design team has been instrumental in that, and my assistant deans as well. We've just been brainstorming and thinking about ways to help faculty improve online learning, and using reaching out to you and utilizing your ideas and recommendations. It has been very fruitful. So with that being said, our next main session starts at 1:45, and I'm not sure, Dr. Morales, do you have anything else you would like to add?
No, aside from maybe something that you may know already, is that the college is working on the implementation of a new learning management system. I'm not sure if there is a session on that later today, but that new tool has been identified as Canvas, and certainly Connect Campus play a role in terms of the expertise, but also the specifications, if you will, because this is the only classroom we have. The difference between face-to-face and online is that we only have one classroom versus face-to-face that has the physical as well as the online. So I think that Allegra is in attendance here, and she has been engaged in that. So not sure if she has a session later, but that is an important element. So you will be receiving more information about training and functions, and again, how we will be able to assist you in that transition as well.
Thank you, Dr. Morales.
And I see, yes, I see a message that Allegra just shared with everybody on chat. So that's maybe another update that we could share at this time. I don't have anything else, unless I was supposed to say something, Dr. Sullivan, that I didn't say. That you want me to say?
What
I'm only trying to be funny, but I'll say something that is important, and certainly don't want to leave the group without mentioning it. You may know already that Dr. Sullivan is interim vice president of academic affairs for Connect Campus, and I want to not only congratulate her, but thank her for her availability and her leadership and collaborative style. So we look forward to all the activities that she will be doing, and again, she will be your resource during this spring semester.
Thank you, Dr. Morales. I appreciate that. And somebody had a question about flyers going out regarding seminars, webinars. Yes, I do forward those, and I have forwarded the President Speaker Series when I get them. So we do send those out.
And Dr. Sullivan, I'm not sure if you addressed any topics in regards to goodies. I know that we have been known for goodies. At least I can tell you that what you are seeing here as a kind of a background or an image, we have that available as a sticker. Okay, so at least we are committing to sharing with you and sending you 1 or 2 stickers so you can proudly display TCC Connect Campus.
Okay, well, thank you. And our main session featuring Julia Quarles and Natalie Russell, who are also our learning community trailblazers, will start at 1:45. So if you want to, take a break, get a snack, be back at 1:45, we will begin promptly. Thank you all so much. I can't say it enough. I can't, mail enough goodies out to everyone. But I just want you to know that I really appreciate you and I appreciate your support. It's been it's been interesting and it's a lot of work, but I couldn't do it without you all. Thank you.
Dr. Sullivan, congrats. This is Natalie. If everyone just wants to step away, the meeting is the same, correct, for the 1:45? It's not a separate link, so they can just take a break and come back?
Yes, it's this link, yes. Thank you, Natalie,
awesome.
for pointing that out. Yeah. Okay, we'll see you shortly. Thank you.
just if you want to kind of.
All right, good afternoon. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, Julia, I can. I sure can. I'm just, I just realized that I needed to turn, when I share, I'm not able to turn my screen, my audio on. So yeah, I do hear you. You're good.
Awesome. Okay, well, we will take just a moment and let our controller here get her screen sorted out. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Julia Quarles, and I am an instructor of English, obviously at Connect. And my co-presenter is...
Hi, everybody. I'm Natalie Russell. I teach biology at Connect. Thanks for joining us today.
And today we are going to talk about...
I'm just going to turn my camera off, Julia.
No worries. We're going to talk about active learning in the digital classroom. A lot of times we give our students tons of great information and it's like a wonderland to them, right? But they're online students and it's them and their computer and they are alone in wonderland. And we want to talk a little bit about how to use active learning in that digital classroom to make them not quite so alone in that wonderland. So a little bit of background in terms of how we came to active learning. Some of you may be familiar with the Active Learning Academy, ALA. It was a district-wide professional development opportunity that we did over the summer, a few summers ago, and it was all great information. It was a lot of really interesting stuff, but a lot of it was focused on face-to-face learning. And Natalie and I teach completely online. And so, you know, in our kind of desperation, we started, you know, getting together in each session and trying to figure out how adapt all of this awesome stuff to work for a fully online class.
So at this point, let's talk about why should you spend the time and the energy to go down this rabbit hole of active learning. So it's certainly going to take time and effort on your part. And we would say from our experience, it has been worth it. And we do see the value of it in our classroom. And one thing that we know is students definitely learn better when they have had an opportunity to practice the material that you're teaching them. So by practice, that means that they have a chance to think about what it is that they're learning. They might have a chance to talk about it. That could be talk, audio, or in writing, written, write and draw about what they're learning. And just to sort of process how things are connected and how they're connected to their lives. Speaking of connection, students also learn better when they feel connected to the class, to fellow students, and to the instructor. So that is also part of active learning, is making sure that they do feel like they're part of the class and that it is an important component that they're involved. We also know that students learn better when the material is scaffolded. So in other words, we're giving it to them, for one thing, in small pieces, and in ways that it builds for them. So we're not going to give them, you know, an assessment before we have developed them through the process to be able to successfully complete that assessment. So active learning is really techniques or types of activities in your class that help students do these things, help them practice, help them feel connected, and help them scaffold the material.
So a lot of the active learning strategies are going to be things that you are already kind of familiar with, even if you aren't consciously identifying them as active learning strategies. These are things like writing and drawing to learn.
Oh, sorry, it looks like somebody tried to take over. Let me
share
my screen.
I'm pretty sure I remember what the next point was, but
there we go.
There we go. Yes, scaffolding. Making sure that, you know, each piece kind of interlocks with the next one and that those connections are made clear. Class discussion so that students can engage with their peers in regards to the information. Group work, and something called gallery walks. So a marker talk is kind of like a gallery walk. You can use them as a gallery walk, and it's a version of writing to learn. In a face-to-face class, this is going to be our first example that we'll get to play around with a little bit. In a face-to-face class, a marker talk usually looks something like this. You give all your students those really cool giant sticky notes, and you give them markers, and you give them a topic, and they get to, you know, think out and write about whatever the topic is. Sometimes it's something that they've been working on and they are kind of, this is the cumulative thing. Sometimes it's more reflective, but whatever it is, they get a little bit of time to sit and write stuff out, and they are going to put it up on the wall. And usually, their peers will go around and look at each of the marker talks. So in a face-to-face class, that lets students have a space for reflection, right? They get to think their ideas out some and put them down on paper. But they know that there's going to be that presentation element, and it helps them kind of imbue the activity with a little bit of formality, right? Because of that presentation element. They know other people are going to see it, and so that helps them kind of inform what they're going to put on the page. But it's also more informal, mostly because of the time constraint, because you're using papers and markers. The less time you give a student to write on something, usually the more informal you're telling them it is. And, in a face-to-face class, it's great. And so in an online conversation, we were trying to find ways of kind of creating the same situation. And one of the best ways we found was something called Padlet. So Padlet lets you have a free account, and students don't need to have their own account. There is a limit. It's changed recently, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, on how many active Padlets you can have at a time. But you can have a free account and the students can have a free account, and they can use Padlet to make initial posts and to reply to each other. So we're going to take a look at it. So this is a Padlet that Natalie created for our presentation today. And you can see, there's the title up at the top. She's picked a custom background for it. And in the lower right-hand corner, there's a little pink circle with a plus sign in it. And that's where you would click to create a brand new post. Once you click that button, your new post will show up like this, with the name at the top, put a title in, and you can write something. And so students can come to this space, they can make a post, they can add images, they can upload stuff, they can create more of a visual written document that their peers can then kind of go around and look at each one and then post comments and replies to. So it's a little bit like a discussion board, but it's more visual. And now we're actually going to do a little bit of playing around with this virtual marker talk.
So we would be very hypocritical if we sat here for an hour and told you all about active learning and how to get your students active, but we just talked at you and didn't get you active. So we are going to now take a little time to have you actively involved in this. So we're going to use Padlet, which is the tool that Julia mentioned. So she's walked you through how to start a post. We're also going to use breakout groups in Teams. So Teams now has breakout groups that you can automatically use to send your students in groups so they can discuss or work on a project or something. So in just a moment, you will automatically be sent to a smaller group, and you will be sent a link that gives you a list of Padlet links. So you'll choose the appropriate link based on your group. So we've stayed with the theme of Alone in Wonderland or Alice in Wonderland. So we have hearts, spades, clubs, and diamonds. So when you get to your group, feel free to turn on your mic, talk with your group, chat with your group, but the main idea of what you're supposed to be doing in this time that you're actively involved is to think about an activity that you've used. Maybe you have taught face-to-face, or you do both. You teach face-to-face and online, and maybe you have an activity that you use face-to-face and you think it's a great active learning activity, but you really haven't converted that to an online environment. So we want you to sort of outline how you might do that in your Padlet post. Or maybe you have a more passive activity that you're currently using, but you think, I can do better, right? I'd like to make this more active. Just outline how you think you might do that. Or maybe you just simply have a topic and you say, I know students struggle with this every single semester, and I need to do something to get them more engaged and let them practice more. So you can outline that. So I want to highlight a few things before we ask our host to send us to our breakout rooms, and that is, you will get a little notification that tells you, in 10 seconds you will be moved to your room. Never ever click the leave button. Teams will automatically move you And then when it's time to come back to the main room, you will automatically be brought back. So don't click the leave button, but if something happens and you aren't in the meeting any longer, then you can just rejoin the meeting by using that link that you used for the 1 o'clock session. So just in summary, you'll be moved to a breakout group. Please feel free to chat, audio on or off or in the chat with your group, but you have about 5 minutes, so you have to get right to business, outlining an activity or something. When you click that pink button in Padlet, please put your name as the title, so that, because we're going to come back to it at the end and we want you to be able to find your own link. When you get to your group, in the chat, you will have a link to the Padlet. Once you open that Padlet, it will open a window in your browser. Just leave that open because we're going to come back to it later. So at this point, I'm going to ask our host if she will send us to our breakout groups.
So those of you who are still in here, for some reason, Teams is saying you're on a device that doesn't support breakout rooms. So I'm going to ask Natalie to jump back in here and lead you guys in your session. I'm not sure what devices don't support breakout rooms, but Natalie's on her way back. So we didn't forget about you, I promise.
Allegra,
Yes.
tell me, we've got some.
So these folks cannot be moved for whatever reason. Teams is not not cooperating. So you have to be their team leader.
I will be their team leader. So in the chat, I just put a link to a Google Doc. So hopefully on your device, it may be a little trickier to be in the meeting and open this, but if you'll click on that doc, there are links to Padlets, and so you can actually choose. It doesn't matter which Padlet you choose, just remember which one you go to so that when we revisit, you'll know which one you want to rejoin. And then you can add your outline of your activity. And if you don't have enough time because you got a late start, that's okay. This will be available, way after this meeting is over. So if you want to review what other people have said, but hopefully you can access the link to that doc. Let me know if you can't.
You're also now going to be able to unmute yourselves. We had everybody muted and locked down for the main session, but you should be able to chat now if you unmute.
Allegra, I think that gave them enough time just to sort of, hopefully some of them were able to get in and think about it. So I think whenever you're ready to bring them all back, we're good.
That's great. Thank you. You tell me when I'm ready to bring them back, by the way, because I don't know.
Yes, you're ready. Do it.
Okay.
Okay, so hopefully everybody made it back to the main room. And we know that was a short amount of time, but we will revisit those Padlets toward the end of the session. And also you'll have access to those links if you didn't get a chance to outline what you wanted. We'll get back to it. But just to pick up with some more examples of how we've used active learning in our classroom, I want to start with drawing to learn. So I know I have heard and read a lot about writing to learn, but in my class, I think drawing plays a really essential role for students to understand different concepts and processes. So I really subscribe to the idea that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I want to first direct you to the bottom right corner. This was a study done in 2018 where they were just looking at retention of words or of terms. And so they basically had people who were in this study either write out the word, spell it out on a page, visualize it in their mind, or draw some kind of picture or doodle that they associated with that word. And you can see that overall, drawing had a much better retention than visualizing or writing. And the good news for people like me who have almost no artistic ability is it didn't matter the level of and how good the drawing was. Okay, it was the fact that you were putting that drawing, sort of making that connection in your mind. Because unlike when we listen or when we just view something, to draw is to be active, and it is to make connections in our brain besides something that we've seen or something we've heard and then something that we actually create. So on the left is just an example of a piece of student work that they have submitted because I teach a lab class and they actually physically do lab. I first started having them draw really as almost evidence that they had done the work, right? To show that, yes, I've done it and to turn it in. But then I realized there's a great benefit to that in their learning, but also in me understanding if they get it or not. So if they draw this picture and turn it in and they've included some kind of structure that's not there or in the wrong place, then it's easier for me to give them some feedback and set that straight. But drawing can be used for a lot. You don't even have to draw a structure. It can be a process, or it can be, we'll talk a little bit later about concept maps. There's lots of ways to use drawing, and different students, some students really enjoy this, and some of them are very artistic and creative. But either way, it's a tool that you can use to engage your students.
So earlier I mentioned gallery walks, and gallery walks are basically where you have the student do any kind of static work. So it can be a picture. It could even be the kind of drawing to learn that Natalie was just talking about. It could be a marker talk. It could be a formal poster. It could be introductions. But the point of a gallery walk is to let students have kind of autonomy in terms of what they go and they explore in terms of their peers' work. And letting students kind of self-direct really lets them buy in a little bit more instead of just kind of having an on-rails experience like they're at Disneyland and going through Pirates of the Caribbean. They get to choose where they're going and what they spend more time on or less time on for some of these peer presentations. And some great tools for conducting gallery walks. Padlet. You can also do wikis. Flipgrid is another one, and we had a session earlier today that addressed Flipgrid. You can also do this in discussion boards where you let the students kind of pick what it is that they want to go and engage with or choose to interact with. There's also Microsoft Sway and Adobe Spark, which lets you create these kind of really pretty pages. And I cannot give you further tips on those because I've interacted with them very briefly, but I do know that the outcomes are worth putting a great deal of time into, and they can be very engaging for students. So one of my favorite things to incorporate into online learning is kinetic learning. So it dawned on me, because I teach English, and a lot of my students spend a lot of time sitting and reading things on their computer, on a tablet, out of a book. It just involves a lot of being by yourself and sitting. And so it kind of dawned on me when we were doing ALA and when I was trying to incorporate this in semesters afterwards into my class, that like getting up and moving to learn something is to an online class what sitting down and writing is to a face-to-face class. In a face-to-face class, you can get them up, you can get them moving, you can have them rearrange their tables, and you can have lessons outside. You can't do that in an online class, right? So prompting them to get up and go outside if they can, thanks to our current COVID situations, when possible, or to just kind of go and explore different areas in ways that connect to your material. Let them both interact with what you're trying to teach them and the broader world. So some things that I've liked to incorporate are photo hunts. Before March of last year, what I would have my students do is go to the library and find a library book. Because in a face-to-face class, I would send them to the library. We'd all go to the library. So I would, had them go to the library. They could pick a book. They could take either a selfie with the book in front of the library, or they could take a picture of their hand holding the book in front of the library if they don't like having their likeness posted on the internet. Or, in terms of, Natalie's field and teaching, biology, that they could go on a nature walk and they could document the kind of life that they find along that walk. Some other ideas are like data collection, interviews, firsthand research of any kind, where they're actually having to make contact with someone and ask them questions. All of our students have something that they're working towards. They have a career, they have a job that they want, and making connections with people in that field is a really important aspect of being successful in any area. And so something I like to have students do is, when applicable to the class I'm teaching, find someone that they know who has a job in that field or who teaches something more closely related to the field that they want to go into, and ask them questions about, how writing shows up in that particular field. What kind of expectations are there in terms of communications, things like that. And then also, like, having students kind of engage in local concerns. Might not have them physically get up and move out, but it helps them think about what's vital and necessary and current in their own community, and kind of link those back into the course. And so when they're driving to work or driving to the store, they can be seeing the things that connect to that idea. Okay, so we talked earlier about scaffolding, and this is just something that we all unconsciously or consciously try to do, but really focusing on it helps build a much stronger course. And this can be content or project-based, but to build connections between previous knowledge and the current topic is a great way of helping students kind of solidify their knowledge as they move through your class, right? This can be connections between lessons, student experience, class discussions. But really what you want to focus on is, like, if you're very consciously trying to put in the scaffolding, is to use clear wording that helps them understand that they are supposed to be looking for those connections, but also consistent terminology. When an idea from a previous lesson repeats in the current lesson, making sure that we're referring to it in the same way. I know we all have, in whatever field, there's at least one term where, depending on where you went to school, you learned it differently. And just making sure that that terminology is consistent from lesson to lesson, so that students can start picking up on those connections and those patterns. That scaffolding will really help them connect to their previous experience, class discussions, and the lessons as they move forward.
And this is just an example. And this I use in my classroom once we've learned a topic and I want to make sure that they actually understand how things connect. I ask them to draw a concept map. So I don't know if I'm the only one who has this issue, but a student will tell me, I studied and I knew all of the material, but I didn't do well on the exam. And sometimes what happens is the only study tool they have is I read the chapter, I highlight the chapter, I reread what I highlighted, and they have memorized some things, but they don't really understand or know how to make those connections. So at least with a concept map, they're having to make connections with terms if you want them to connect terms or if you want them to connect a process. And it can even, this is a very simple one where they're just putting, terms as they relate to a larger concept. But you can have arrows, and more explanation about how they're related. And I use these many times it's an option, right? It's not a graded activity, but they can share it in the discussion board or they can share it on Padlet with their fellow students. But sometimes I will offer one up as a small, low stakes type assignment or an extra credit assignment. These concept maps do improve, I think, retention of material. Sometimes we think, as Julia mentioned, connections are obvious, right? We've been teaching this subject a long time, and it just seems like how could anybody not see, right, that, chromosomes are related to meiosis or whatever. But sometimes for students, those connections are not as obvious, and if we ask them to make those connections themselves, it's maybe something that they will retain. The other thing is details. Sometimes students get bogged down in just memorizing a bunch of details, and they don't see how those fit in the overall big picture of things. So a concept map is one way that we can hopefully help them to identify those things.
So one of my love-hate passions is discussion boards. Very early on, when I first started teaching online, I really did not enjoy discussion boards as an online student. I didn't enjoy discussion boards as an instructor. And I was like, okay, so these are very vital. And I really wanted them to be all that they could be, right? I loved classroom discussions as a student once I got over my paralyzing fear of talking in class. And so I sat down for a while, especially, incorporating some of this active learning information, and was like, okay, so what is it that I want this to do? Using that same kind of idea, I want to combine the best of an online discussion board and a traditional face-to-face discussion in a class. All right, so in an online class, every student gets a chance to be heard, right? In that discussion board, they can all have a voice. They can all have a presence. All they have to do is post. They don't have to talk over people. And that was always my big hindrance in class, was that I couldn't talk over anybody. They also have a chance to reflect before they interact. And that doesn't mean that the conversation's moved on without them. It's also archived so they can go back and look at it again. But in a face-to-face class, the culture there it encourages participation. And in a class, they can self-identify the need or idea that they have, just kind of raising their hand and saying, hey, I have this idea, or hey, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. Can we go back over it? And in those face-to-face classes, it can be very informal because students can help each other, right? So to combine that into the best of both, I wanted each student to kind of have that space, to have that voice. I wanted it to be reflective and let them self-identify their engagements or, questions or ideas that they had. And I wanted to incorporate a little bit of student teaching, that little bit of informal group knowledge aspect that you get in a face-to-face class, with a little bit of the instructor making sure that everything being said there was accurate. So that led me to this idea for class discussions that kind of helps them engage a little bit more with each other. Next slide, please. Okay. So in my 1301 and 1302, and in my Britlet one, I have students ask the questions. This isn't the only thing that we do, but I wanted them to be able to ask questions that drove the conversation forward, and within the bounds of the lesson that we had that week. So for 1301 and 1302, it can be about whatever the lesson topic was, or the essay that we're working on, or just things that they've kind of hit a wall with in their drafting process. And in British literature, it was a discussion question that kind of dove a little bit deeper about whatever work we were studying based on the primary and secondary texts. So in 1301 and 1302, they could answer each other's questions. And this why I create one big thread. And so they can all see each other's questions and all see each other's answers, and gave it more of a sense of a group conversation rather than one person posting a question and one person posting a direct answer. My British literature class, I wanted it to be a little bit more formal, so I had them actually do 250 to 300 word replies that were more formal, almost like mini essays. So it was prompting them to find a topic that they had questions about, that they were interested in, and then sorry, something just popped up on my screen. And then, they could self-identify which one of those smaller topics they were really interested in and do research on it and dive a little bit deeper even, and then share that out with the class so that they're getting a little bit of collaborative learning. They're all engaging, but they're engaging in a particular aspect of that one work that really, really interests them.
All right, let's talk about group work. So nobody has ever had any student that has resisted group work or said anything like, can't I just do it by myself, or, help, there's nobody in my group that's participating, or anything like that. I think any of us who try to have collaborative work, group work, you're going to have some obstacles to overcome. But is it worth it? I say yes, it's absolutely worth it. And if I think about when I teach a face-to-face class, there is a lot of learning that occurs when students come in that first few minutes before the class actually begins, where they're discussing with one another very informally. When they're walking, leaving the class, walking together, asking those questions that maybe they don't want to ask the instructor directly because they're really not sure how they want to ask it, or it's just simple, but they still want to discuss it. The other thing is, in a lab class, there's nothing more natural than to turn to the person on your left or your right and say, hey, would you look at this? Is this what yours looks like? Or where did you find this? Or how did you do this? It's very natural. It's harder to facilitate that in an online class. It's still possible to do, and I think it's still very important to do, so our students can have those kinds of connections and that peer-to-peer learning. So it may take a little more effort on our parts as instructors to make it valuable, but here's just some suggestions that I have about perhaps how to make group work worth it to you and worth it to your students. So I would say first, to be present, I say in their discussion, but wherever it is that you have their group project. So I set up groups at the beginning for my classes, and I encourage my students, as you're going through your lab activities, if you have a question, if you want to share a picture and ask about it with your fellow students, do that. It's not cheating, right? I'm asking you to collaborate that way. So I pop in to their discussions within their groups just to check on them or say, hey, that's great, I'm glad you shared that. I think if you do that, it shows them you think that's important, and it validates that that's a key part of their learning. The other thing is, it's hard to institute group work sort of all of a sudden for one project. Whereas if you develop that through the semester ongoing, I think they're more accustomed to it, and they've also gotten to know their group members better. So as I mentioned, I encourage my students to share. Now, obviously, there are things, right, that they need to do alone, but especially their lab activities, I encourage them to share their results and discuss those together. One other idea is to define roles or rotate leaders. So if you set up a group and you don't see anything happening, it might be, okay, this week, whoever's name is comes first in the alphabet, you be the leader and get things started. And then you just go down, next week, the person with the name that comes second in the alphabet. And then I like to design a project for my groups that actually they need each other, right? They really can't complete it on their own because they have to compile data together. So that's a big motivator for them to work together. And then I tell them from the very beginning that they are going to be evaluating one another, and that will be part of their grade. So my evaluation is very simple. Did this member contribute to the project? Did they listen to other people's ideas? Basic things that you would want to see in your group. And I let them know ahead of time, these are the things that are in the peer evaluation. So again, I think it's worth the effort. I think students can learn differently from peers than they do from instructors. It just may take a little extra work on our part from the beginning.
Okay, so we've come full circle. We've gotten some just intro ideas about how to use some active learning in our classes. And now what we're going to do is we're going to revisit the Padlet we were all in before. And that activity that you had that was maybe a little bit passive, maybe worked great in a face-to-face class, but you're trying to figure out how to incorporate it into an online class, or just a topic that you really needed to imbue a little bit of activity into. We're going to go back to that activity in the Padlet, and we're going to kind of reflect on that and check out other people's, right? View and comment on at least 2 other posts. Ask questions, come up with ideas. This is more of the group work at this point. The main goal is to try to revise or create or adapt that assignment to be more active for your online class. Okay, and then to also kind of look at everybody else's and go, oh, that's a good idea. I could totally borrow that for my class as well. So if our wizard behind the curtain could shoo everybody off into their breakout groups for about
Did you
10.
just call me a wizard?
Yes, of course.
Rooms are
And
opening.
you should
Rooms are
go.
opening.
I think everybody should go to their same original group.
Yeah, we have about 10 minutes.
And there will be a quiz over this.
Okay, I'm going to put that link there for this group again in case you want to revisit it. Hopefully you were able to get there, but if not, you can always visit it even after the meeting.
And I will give you all permission to unmute if you want to discuss with one another.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Okay, Allegra, I think if you would bring everybody back, we can finish this presentation up.
I'm on it, boss.
Thank you. You're a great wizard. Okay. Hopefully you've all made it back to the main room. I got a chance to just look at a few of the Padlets, and it looks like there were great ideas there. So the links will be available if you want to take a look at what other people have said and get some great ideas. But we appreciate your willingness to participate and be active in this today. So I'm going to turn it over to Julia now to get us started.
Yes. So we have just a few tips at the end here about active learning for the instructors. All right. And the first tip is to ask for feedback from students. They are the ones who are trying to learn the material, who are interacting with the things you put out there, and they're going to be your best proofreaders. Sometimes it's a little scary to ask students for feedback, but students like to have their feedback valued, and when you ask for that, they often want nothing more than to help you fix or improve or polish up whatever project it is that you're working on that semester. So if you're implementing a new active learning activity, and you don't be afraid to ask students for some feedback on it.
Yes, absolutely. And then I think we have to be ready to be constantly revising. So it's not like we're going to have this perfect assignment and be so proud of it and never want to adjust it. It's something that we can sort of adjust as we hear from students and as we see, how effective that particular activity is.
And when you're implementing something new, something you're trying out, be honest with students and with yourself. If something doesn't work out quite the way you expected it to, just be honest about that. If you're trying out something new, tell them ahead of time. There's no reason why you shouldn't be like, hey, we're going to try this new tool. We're going to use this semester and see how this goes. So being honest with the students is always a great way of keeping that conversation going.
And then we would say we teach online, and so technology is the way that we communicate with our students, and it's the way our students engage in the material and turn in assignments. So don't be afraid to harness that technology. There are so many different types of tools available. As we move to Canvas, there's going to be a whole nother group of tools that maybe some of us haven't learned, some of us have. So I would say don't be afraid of technology when we can use it to help our students engage in the material better.
But also be a little afraid of the technology. Having a healthy amount of fear of the technology that you're using means that it's not going to catch you by surprise if something goes off the rails, so to speak.
Yes. So choose your technology carefully. I know one thing, I don't want to use technology that requires my students to have a whole lot of registrations, right? If I can use something like Padlet they can just go to, I'm good with that. But if they have to make an account and all those things, that's different. But some technology is good, and we want to make use of that. So the excuse that, well, I haven't used that before, maybe we shouldn't avoid technology for that reason.
But also, don't use too much technology. Technology is great, and we should harness it and use it, but you don't want to overwhelm yourself or students with too much, too often, or too soon, right? Strategically choosing the technology that you're implementing and using in your course is always a great idea. And keep in mind that just like us, sometimes students like to be offline too.
Absolutely. And now we would like to ask you, so there is another tool that I do like to use, and I like this tool and I like Padlet both because they can actually be embedded into your LMS, so you don't have to send students out to a link. And so Mentimeter, which is on the instructor side, is the instructor side of Menti. So just for fun, we know that we just have a few minutes left, so we don't want to keep you over, but we would love for you to try out this tool. This is a way to just get some quick feedback from students. It could be content specific. You know, maybe it's, I want to know what's your muddiest point? What do you not get from this lesson? Or it could be to give you feedback about a particular active learning assignment you gave them, or, you know, test questions or whatever. A quick way to get some feedback from your students where it's anonymous. And so you can get real feedback because it's not tied to their name. So if you would take just a minute and either on your browser or on your smartphone or wherever, if you would just go to www.menti.com, then it will ask you for a code, and the code is there for you. And then there are 3 questions that we would like to get your feedback about. And we will happily share with you the results of that if you want to see what that looks like from the instructor side. I many times use this where I'm getting results that I want other students to see, right? So I'll share the results to the class. Also at the very end, it should ask you if you want to get a copy of the results. You can put your email address in and it will email it to you. But you should all have access to this meeting chat after the fact so we can share the results of this Menti with you after. And I want to say a couple other things in closing, and then I know we have an attendance sheet to share with you. But so TCC had the Active Learning Academy, and that's what Julia mentioned at the beginning. That's how we were, I guess it was probably a year and a half ago or 2 years ago that we were in that Active Learning Academy.
It was forever ago.
It was pre-COVID. How about that? That's how we mark time, PC. But now TCC has a different type of professional development, and it's sort of it's built off of those same ideas, but it's a little more inclusive of civic engagement and, you know, online teaching, and it's called the Engaged Learning Institute, or ELI. And there are going to be new cohorts coming up this semester, 8-week cohorts. So we have first 8 week and we have second 8 weeks. And I serve as one of the ELI facilitators, and I did that in the fall. And I love it because every time I learn something, because across the district, people are doing amazing things. I mean, I can just name right here, like, for example, Padlet. I learned that from Kenya. She's the first one I ever saw embed that in her class. I learned about Bitmojis and doing audio from Allegra. I learned better ways to do my discussion posts from Julia. So by being in ELI, one reason to do that is just to learn what other people are doing or how they're using different tools in their class. So anyway, I am going to put in the chat a link. If you're interested in ELI, there will be a link in there. And then we also have a whole lot of other links, right? Allegra attendance, and I don't know what else.
Yeah, I'm posting links for the 3 to 4 p.m. sessions. Natalie will be posting an attendance link and a link if you're interested in the Engaged Learning Institute. So we'll label each of them and just find whatever it is you're looking for. We built in a break for 15 minutes so that you could, move around, refresh, get a drink, whatever you want to do before our last session, which will be beginning at 3 p.m. And if you have questions, you're welcome to ask. And we'll get all of those links put into the chat for you.
All right.
While
Natalie is getting that attendance sheet, I just wanted to thank everybody for participating again in our Padlet activity, and getting to see a little bit of what it's like to be on the student side, playing with that new technology. And so I hope you all have a lovely afternoon. I think Allegra has posted all 3 of the Canvas sneak peek links. I think they're broken down by last name. And Natalie, if you scroll up Christina Bigler has posted the attendance feedback sheet for this session. So I hope you all have a lovely afternoon, and I'll see you when we take a look at Canvas.
Yes, and I just want to say one thing about the attendance. The attendance sheet, so that helps us record attendance internally at TCC Connect. But if you want to put that you attended these sessions in the Learn Center, you can do that yourself. So you'll just create that yourself in your Learn Center. We won't be including those for you in your Learn Center. This is just, for your department chairs to have, or deans to have record within TCC Connect campus. But yeah, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your sessions.
And the link that Natalie just posted is asking you for your t-shirt size and your mailing address. Our president would like to send a gift to everyone. You can probably guess that it was a t-shirt. So you can put that information on that attendance sheet so we can send that to you if you'd like. It's a different link, Kimberly, than the previous session link. So use the link that Natalie just popped in the chat.